Good afternoon again, everyone, and welcome to this final Total U session for the semester. This is part 3, and we are talking about action words in exam questions, exam preparation tips, maximizing your performance and maximizing your marks. Okay, and we're going to keep this session very, very tight because I know people are very, very busy, but it is our pleasure to welcome back home Dr. Edia Copeland Solas. She is one of us Pelicans. In fact, she graduated from the chemistry department here in the FST. I'm going to tell you a little bit more before we get to her presentation. She's going to be leading us in this workshop, and you better get ready for immersion because that is what Dr. Copeland does very, very well. So to start off, though, we have a little entertainment from your FST Guild Committee rep, Mr. Tyreek McLean. Tyreek, over to you.
All right, so good afternoon or good evening again, everyone. So as you know, I'm Tyreek McLean, and I wanted to do a piece by Maya Angelou, inspirational piece, but to fit the theme of today and to fit what's to come, I decided to do one of my original pieces. This one is unnamed, and let me just go straight into it. So, my heart is racing. I don't know what to do. My mind is giving up. One thing I can think about is you. Thinking of the future trials, the past mistakes, and the only thing that's coming in is all the doubt and the pain. The doubt, the pain. What am I supposed to do when the whole world is staring at you? So should I give up? Should I stay in? There's just so much I need to know, so much I can't know. Well, one thing that I know that I should be doing now is to just look forward, look straight ahead. Don't give up yet. Keep in touch. Should keep in touch, my friends. Prepare. We're in this together. We're never alone. All right, so that's it. Sorry that the piece is so short, but this one, it reminded me of the exam season, and it reminded me all of what we're going through right now, and I just wanted to let you know. We're at the end of the semester, and don't give up yet. Yeah.
Wonderful, Tariq. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. You know, guys, it's really cool that we're moving away from, you know, the singing and that kind of entertainment into poetry. And it's fitting, I said to Dr. Solas, because Dr. Solas herself writes poetry, as far as I remember, when she was here. Almost like a big sister she was to me when we were in Professor Kawa's research group working on lanthanide chemistry. I was, and Dr. Solas was working on vanadium chemistry. So I want to thank you, Tariq, for bringing us poetry. I have another little piece coming up from Malik later on in the evening to close it all off. So at this point, I'm going to bring on Dr. Edia Solas to all of you. Dr. Solas holds a PhD in chemistry. You've heard this before, right here from the chemistry department at UWI in the FST. She also has a master's in education from UWI. And then she also holds a master's of teaching from the University of Toronto. She's been around the world. She lectured for a while here at UWI in our department, and then she went off, and she's been around the world with her interests in science education, particularly in unveiling the challenges that students face in learning science. She's studying also or has interest in methodologies that facilitate learning, and she's also interested in identifying and dismantling student misconceptions in science. Dr. Solas, everybody, is therefore ideally placed, especially because she is also a mother. And I think all of her experiences professionally and personally have really positioned her in a special place to communicate with you. And I welcome Dr. Solas back home and to talk to our students about understanding action words and give us some strategies for maximizing those marks in exams. Edia, over to you, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As Marvadine just said, Dr. Singh Wilmot just said, I'm Edia Solas, and I'm a graduate of the University of the West Indies. And I consider, even though I have other degrees from elsewhere, I consider UWI my alma mater, and it really is my pleasure to journey with you as you go along your own careers. And I know the exam time is always an anxiety producing time. I remember my time as an undergraduate at the UWI, and the whole anxiety, I didn't know what it was I was supposed to study. I didn't know when I was finished studying. I didn't know so many things. And yet, of course, I know that it wasn't because I was a good student. After all, I made it to the UWI, and so have all of you. And so I know that even though we know that we have a place at UWI and we know that we belong where we're at, we still have some issues relating to exam and exam taking techniques. And so what I want to do for us this afternoon is to take us through, and I'm hoping that this will be an interactive session, that you will participate, that we can talk about it, because it is in knowing the way you are feeling that I can address each issue. And each person has their own perspective, and each person I know has their own little thing that they don't understand or that they do understand, and so on. And so I want to hear from you as much as I'm here and to learn from you as well, as much as I am here to talk with you. Now I teach science educators, and so this information is good information for me as well, because I need to know, as a science educator, teacher educator, how my students going out into the teaching world will interface with students and the kind of feedback that they will get. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you for my presentation today, entitled Exam Preparation Strategies, Understanding Action Words in Exam Questions, and Minimizing Test Anxiety. And so before I launch into what it is that I have to say, just to keep us focused and to know what it is we're going to be about, at the end of this session, you should be able to do 3 things. 1, you should be able to identify those action words in exam questions. 2, you should be able to relate these action words to what is required for successful responses in your exams. And 3, you should be able to recall some tips for minimizing test anxiety and hopefully be able to put some of these into practice. Okay? So what I want you to do for me, because as I said, this is an interactive session, I want you to tell me what are some of these action words on your exam papers. And I'm going to be sharing a link to the Jamboard here. Just let me put it in the chat. Here. I'm going to be sharing a link to this Jamboard. And what I want you to do on page 1 is to write down the action words that you normally see in your exams. So these are the verbs. Tell me all of them that you can think of. Just write them on Post-it notes, and I will be, some of you have already joined, I think, yeah. So what I want you to do, use your Post-it notes. And we're just going to be sharing. So this is where your Post-it note is, your sticky note, and you can just write some of these words that you see on your exams that are instructive. These are the verbs. Are you able to see the Jamboard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. If you do it as a text, or if you put it on the sticky, so this is the sticky note here, you can put it on the sticky, and if I want to put, for example, discuss, I should be able to do it. Yes. Outline, thank you. Describe and explain, clarify, yeah. Examine, fantastic. State, describe, calculate, compare, analyze, distinguish. So I know you know what these words are. Sketch, yes. Compare and contrast. Differentiate. Yes, we have some compare and contrast there again. So these are some of the words, and we are going to be discussing these words, what they mean, and how they are used in exams. So from what you have there on the Jamboard, I know that you understand what I mean by action words and that you have seen them. But do you know what they mean, and can you relate them to what is being asked of you in your exam? Okay, so let's look a little bit on the Bloom's taxonomy. Now, the Bloom's taxonomy has been used by educators all around the world for assessment and evaluation. And what it does is that it classifies what the skills and knowledge and skills that educators would have does someone want to say something? I'm not able to see you once I'm sharing screen, so just let me know. Yes? Is it Janelle? Okay. So at the basis of all of these knowledge and skills that educators want you to know as students would be to recall facts and basic concepts. So these are normally called knowledge. These verbs are normally knowledge-based action words. So for example, if you see something like define or list, repeat, state, these verbs normally relate to things like definitions and so on that your instructors would like you to know, to have as a basic knowledge. But normally the questions will start with these. So this is the basic kind of knowledge that you need to answer your exam question. And so your instructor will expect that all students who've prepared for their exam will know how to do this. This is normally simply regurgitation of information with some amount of understanding. So defining a term or telling stating a process or things like those. So that's basic recall. And then as you go further in the question, it builds up. And so you're asked now to explain your ideas or concepts. So now, having recalled, having been able to list and so on, you're now able to classify and describe and discuss and explain and identify and locate and recognize and report and select and translate based on the knowledge that you have just listed, okay? And then at another level, at a higher level, Once you are able to explain your ideas, then your questions will now go into application. So now you are expected to solve, to demonstrate how you use this understanding that you have, to interpret something, you know, to sketch something based on your ideas and so on. And then at an even higher level, you now analyze it. So you're drawing connections. So it builds up. So now you start differentiating, you start comparing and contrasting and relating and distinguishing and examining and experimenting and so on. And you're testing and questioning and so on. So that's part of your analysis. And then you reach a level where you start evaluating. So this is where you start supporting, providing some evidence or critiquing and weighing and valuing and appraising. And then at the highest level, this is where you're expected now to construct, develop, formulate, investigate, and design. So the whole structure, so although these are actionable words that you're seeing in your exam questions, they actually build. And what you will notice in your exams is that this level, the lowest level, will carry the least number of marks. So you might be able to state something for 2 marks and so on, but then you will find that the marks keep increasing. And so more is required for you. But if set with quite a few of these different levels from Bloom's taxonomy, your question there will be something for everyone. And so we're starting off, so you're distinguishing. So everybody in the class, considering that we're all have a place at the university, should be able to remember something, to remember the topic, especially if you've paid attention, right? So, but just remembering it alone will not get you your passing grade. You need to be able to show some understanding. But then when you're getting now towards your A, then you're moving into the analyze and evaluate and creating. Okay. So before we go on to some of these words that we have here, do you have questions, please? So you can put your questions in the chat, or you can unmute and let me hear from you.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask it. So I'm just trying to see if I get a basic understanding of what's going on here. If you go back to the triangle, pyramid, that's the word, pyramid.
Okay.
Relatives. Okay, so you're saying if a question says just write like a definition or just write the concept. Don't explain it, just like write it. But then you say if it goes up to maybe say explain, I write the concept and then I go in depth on what the concept is. Then if it goes up further, like in a new scenario, I would write a concept related to the scenario. I'd explain the concept, and then I would sort of try to use that knowledge to answer the new scenario. Am I on the right track so far?
You're on the right track. In fact, what you've said, you're first going to state. So that's your total recall, your knowledge. And so you'll get your 2 marks for that normally. And then as the question goes on, you're using what you've stated. So what your instructor is trying to find out now is, having stated that, do you really understand it, or are you just spitting it back out? And you say you understand it, but can you use it? Can you apply it? What about other external contexts? Can you create something based on what you understand? All right. So that is where we're going with it. And further on in the my presentation, I'm going to invite you to examine some questions. We're going to be looking at how they're set up. Okay.
Okay. Well, as it goes further, you like on the analyze part, for that, maybe there'd be a similar scenario to this new situation that I'd have to then, in that case, say which one is better, which one is worse, and evaluate. Or maybe like evaluate. I would choose a stance based off of all that, and then use the information below to justify that stance.
That's right. That's correct. So you're going to have to, for example, depending on what verb you're using. So suppose so it's different whether you're organizing something. So for example, if you're doing something like organizing, you understand what an insect is. All right. So if you're doing something in biology, for example, because I know not everybody here is a chemist, or you're pursuing chemistry, but if you're, for example, you want to know what birds are, you know what birds are, right? So if you can write a definition on what a bird is, for example, or an insect or a vertebrate or whatever, then you have to be able to use that information now to classify items into which ones are vertebrates, which ones are invertebrates, and so on and so forth, if that's what you're doing. And then later on, you have to compare and contrast the kinds of behaviors or the things that they can do. So you're moving, your question is moving, and it's getting deeper and deeper, drawing on more and more understanding. So you're yes, that one is difficult a little bit. I mean, how would you know what a bird is, right? Does it have to have feathers? Let's check out the penguin. Is the penguin a bird then? Does it have to have wings, right? So those are the type of things you might be thinking of. Or does it need a beak? Are there any birds without beaks? Are there any birds without feathers? So, okay, so probably not feathers. Depending, right? So those are some of the things you'd have to be thinking about. And so your instructor will know whether you have a deep understanding, because you might just give a definition that is very clear and is technically correct, but the understanding is not there. And to use something from chemistry, for example, I might ask you what a hydrogen bond is. And you will tell me about that a hydrogen bond, about the hydrogen bond, and so on. And then I will say to you, okay, now that you know what a hydrogen bond is, identify the hydrogen bonds in this diagram. And you will probably tell me what the hydrogen bonds are. And then I might say to you, now I have a pot of water and it's boiling on the stove, right? And the water is evaporating, right? And I ask you now to draw me a diagram and explain what is happening. So what I'm trying to get from you there is not for you to draw a pot of water just boiling on the stove. What I want to see is the breaking of the hydrogen bonds. But then when I look on your diagram, I see that the oxygen is gone there and the hydrogen is over there, then I know you don't really understand hydrogen bonding, even though you had a perfect definition up front, right? So as I got deeper, I am trying to separate those who are just spitting it out and those who actually understand the concept. Okay?
Yeah, yes, that answers my question then.
Right. So let's look at some. Yes. So I know we have them from all the faculty. So I'm trying not to use too many chemistry examples, which is why I'm trying to use some biology ones, and I'm trying to use others as well. Thanks for that. All right. So now we're looking at some action words, and this list that I have here. And so just to link this to the pyramid before, so this would have been the base of the pyramid, and then the pyramid would have increased towards create. So I'm just going to give you a few seconds, probably a minute or so, to take a look at some of these words that would come underneath each of these levels of questioning in your exams. So I gave you some before when we looked at the on the pyramid, but now we're going to be looking at the lists. So things, as I said before, with your basic recall would be define, identify, describe, label, list, and you will see some of these words that you had put them on the Jamboard. And we're going to be revisiting that Jamboard later on. So don't log out. All right, so we're looking at creation. So where we are at now, develop. So now we're moving from the specific, can we generalize? Can we modify? Can we rearrange? Okay, so these are all the different things that we're looking at. So the why. So we're doing some physics, for example, and we're looking at static electricity, and we're talking about what causes it. So you might decide that, you know, if you rub a balloon on your hair and it might be able to stick to the wall or stick to your whatever, but why? Why is it that the electrons are moving towards the balloon and not towards your hair? Why? So the whys are there and so on. And whereas this will give you a basic knowledge, the whys come out in the higher levels. All right. And so when your instructor asks you to sketch something, they're trying to see whether or not you have to determine your cognition, right? Or how it is that you're understanding what is going on, and not just basic, you know, just being able to give a definition. So what I want you to do now is so what if it just says, how does it work? How deep does it go? Does how go? Now, how would definitely be one of the higher level skills that you're looking at, right? So you are now going to be required to explain all the different concepts based on your definitions and so on, but you're going to be explaining different concepts. You might want to provide evidence through a diagram and so on to make sure that you communicate to your instructor that you have a deep understanding of what is going on. So if the question says, how does it work? You have to provide the evidence. You can't just write words that are vague. You have to be very pointed. And I always say, use a diagram where your words are, you feel like you don't have the right words, because sometimes I find that students don't use, their words are too vague and I'm not getting from them the kind of understanding that I want. And when you use words like the it and the stuff, and I'm not even sure what part of the it or what part of the stuff, but when a well-labeled sketch, a well-labeled annotated, you know, a well-annotated sketch is very good in explaining the how of something and the why behind it. So thanks for that question, Tariq. I'm going to ask you now to go to the Jamboard again, and you can choose. I have some chemistry, physics, and math questions there. On page 2, I have physics. On page 3, I have math. And so Tariq, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to point out that some of the persons in the comments, they're not me. I think it's because I shared the link. It's actually
okay. It's coming up as you.
Yeah, there's 2 Tyreeks. I just realized I'm a Tyreek apparently. I actually adjusted.
Okay.
I'll be a Tyreek for this session though, if that's okay. I can borrow your name for now, Tyreek.
All right. So, you know, it reminded me of when I taught in the Middle East, and so many of my students would have the same name, like Muhammad or Abdullah. And I would say Muhammad, and 6 people would raise their hands, and I just count them off, and Abdullah. And but It's a very interesting time. Anyway, so what I want you to do is go back to the Jamboard and identify the action words and post them on use the post-its again and write the Bloom's taxonomy level. I'll show you what it looks like. So we have here page 1. So let me go to page 2. If I can get this out of the way. Yeah. So what, for example, on page 2, you have physics. So I've placed a physics question here. And what I want you to do is to get a sticky note, pull the action words from here and write the levels. You can just write the levels of knowledge, understanding, application, analyzing, evaluating, and creating here. You can just pull the words here and tell me what level it's at. Okay. So I'll give you a little time to do that. So I did it in different. So on page 2, you have physics. So the people who are doing physics, I don't know if there are any physics students here. I see the chemistry people are out already. So I see here identifies under knowledge. And let's see what's going on with the. Okay. So there are only chemistry people. I'm not seeing the math and the.
Oh, Miss, I don't really know how I would go to write on that regardless. I'm just in the chat right now.
The Jamboard, I'll post the link. So the link is in the chat. Once you click on that link in the chat, it will take you to the Jamboard, and then you can scroll here to the page that that you want to be. So far I've been seeing the chemistry people, but no physics and math people. Okay. All right. Oh, we have somebody here for physics. So we have outline. So we have outline, and outline is in the knowledge section. So we have to draw some stuff. Right. So because you have to have more than a basic definition to draw something, basic understanding to draw something, especially if this is not a diagram that you're expected to reproduce. And that's, and of course, there are ways around this, because sometimes what you find is that if the person has already given you a sketch and all they are asking you to do is reproduce the sketch, then obviously that would be a recall question. So because they've already just given you the sketch and all you did was memorize the sketch and you're sketching it again. So really and truly, that would have been a higher order question, except that you've seen it before. So now it becomes recall. So depending and some people I know overcompensate in that respect. So normally these are just yes, due to your because if you and some students when they're studying they do that. They look for every question and every possible thing because they don't want to get into the analyze and so on and evaluating and the creation. They want everything to be a total recall. So they want to see it first. So so everything for them is just recall. I've seen that before, so I'm just recalling it rather than thinking about it. So I know one of the main aims was really to look at the actionable words in your exam questions. But one of the things I want also to share with you is how you can prepare yourself for doing your exam. And perhaps this comes from my own experience, because as I shared with you earlier, one of the issues that I had as an undergraduate is that sometimes I didn't know, or sometimes I did know, but I didn't know when I knew, and I didn't know when I didn't know. And a lot of things times, I mean, I went into an exam, I went into lots of exams, and I couldn't tell whether I got an A or a C or an F, to be honest. And I would come out and an A would be as shocking to me as, or a B would be as shocking to me as anything, because I went into the exam and I just did something. I didn't really know how far, I didn't know really what I was doing. It was just, and I don't want that for you, because what it does is that it increases your test anxiety, and it makes you not know when you're finished studying, and it causes you not to be able to organize your time. So I want to discuss some of that as well. Yeah. So, but that's not that, it doesn't have to be like that. And so I want to share a little bit of that with you as well, as we go further. So yeah, we have here, so some persons have pulled from, so now you have your exam questions here, like draw and name. Name is another one here that would be, you could look at. So draw, name, choose, sketch, a diagram, and so on. Identify the major product. So these are some of the chemistry ones that you've left out. I don't know if we don't have enough chemistry, we didn't have any from math, but here in math, we have to show something. So we have to show why this part is equal to the left part of the equation is equal to the right side, why all of this is equal to 0. We have to show if y is equal to that. All right. And then here in part C, we are given something and we have to show why this one is okay. So, and over here, you know, we have to find, express. Those are some of the action words we have there. Let's look at the physics. So in the physics, you have pointed out some, you have pulled some. We'll pull some other ones. Here we have describe, sketch. And so what are we sketching? We have to sketch something to measure, and we have to sketch something here and we have to describe it, okay? And then for part B here, we have to draw another sketch. And here we have to outline something, so, and describe something. So one of the things that I would advise you to do, for example, when you go in exam, is first look for the verbs and underline them, and look for any not that you will see in an exam. Because sometimes if you're not reading your question properly and it says not, there's a not, that not there, N-O-T, is something that sometimes students don't see, and they do the opposite of what they're supposed to be doing. All right. When you see something that says describe, if you're describing something, you need to use words so that the person has a mental image of what it is that you're describing. So if I tell you to describe me, right, you can't just say that it's a black lady. Come on, how many people will that fit? Especially if the person is at UE. You have to describe me so that somebody who goes into the staff room will be able to pick me out. So you have to find some distinguishing characteristics about me, some unique characteristics about me to identify me, right? If I tell you to sketch something, then when you sketch it, it needs to give me a vivid picture of what it is. You can't sketch something like you're drawing a cow and the person is trying there to figure out whether it's a chicken, a horse, or a cow. No, you have to draw it so that it looks like it. So there has to be something unique about it and so on. When you outline things, it needs to be in order. When you're doing something, outline 2 ways in which the accuracy of the measurement can be improved. It needs to be so clear that somebody who picks it up should be able to read it and follow what it is that you have there. So those are some of the ways in which, if you're supposed to indicate something, you need to be drawing an arrow somewhere or something that tells me that this is what you're talking about and not that. You can't just put them all together and expect me to guess. That's not going to get you where you want to go. All right. So let's all right, so that's our actionable part. Just before I go into some of the things that you can do to minimize your test anxiety, are there any questions that you have for me? And thanks for doing that. Thanks for going through the words, you know, and pulling them and being able to identify them. First thing you do when you go in your exam is to underline those words. Those are the key words that you're aiming for. This is what you're being asked to do and to demonstrate in your exam. Questions, comments? Something to share? Okay, so let me look at some of the exam readiness strategies and ways in which you can minimize your test anxiety then. So this must be something that, that might be of interest to some of you. I thought I'd just share this to sort of round off what we're doing today. So the first thing you want to do whenever, and this might have been better at the beginning of this semester, but there's no time like the present. The first thing that you want to do is clarify within yourself as a student what it is that you need to learn in this course and how you can demonstrate success. So the first thing you need to do is become very familiar with your course outline. So if you need to learn to differentiate, if you need to learn to integrate, if you need to learn about cells, if you need to learn about biochemical systems, if you're doing equilibrium reactions, or you're looking at some forms of organic chemistry, if you need to do some kind of analytical chemistry and you need to understand how to work on your mole concept and so on and so forth, you need to know what it is that you need to learn. What a lot of students tend to do is to read a chapter in the book and they read it through and they have no idea what they're aiming for. But they tell themselves, I've read it through, I've done due diligence. No, you have to go into that chapter knowing what you're looking for and what it looks like when you have found it. What does success look like? You're going in there looking for the pot of gold and you're standing there and you don't know what the pot of gold looks like. You have to go in there with an aim, and if you don't get it, find your lecturer and say, what is this course about? What am I supposed to be getting from this? So that you know what you're looking for. You need to know what success looks like, what it sounds like. Yes, that's right. What it smells like, what it tastes like. Get you know what your success criteria is so that you know when you hit the goal. Because otherwise you're studying in vain And if you're like me, your eyes glaze over when you're reading the chapter because you're really trying to do it, you know. You're really trying to do it, but you don't know what you're looking for. So boredom will kill you. Once you know what it is you're looking for and you know what success looks like, if you don't like to read it twice, read it on this Google site and that Google site and the other Google site and, you know, all the different sites. Look in your textbook. Make sure that if it is a concept that is very hard for you to get, start on, I like to start even from the kiddies version. You know what I mean? The kiddies version, you get a YouTube video, you watch it on the kiddies version and so on. And if your lecturer isn't explaining it to you properly, Google is a verb, YouTube is your best friend, get it from somewhere else. But if you know what it is you're supposed to be learning, then you know what success looks like. So you go at it with an aim. And so you will know when you know. Okay? Be organized and be thorough. Don't let it up until you get that topic. Then it comes to the rest. You need to get some sleep. Most of us don't sleep because we don't even know when we get there. So we're just reading it over and over. And we tell ourselves that if I don't sleep and I don't do anything else and my back is hurting and my eye is hurting, then it means I deserve to pass because I did it. I lift up the thing, right? But remember, you have to rest. Your brain is wired to rest. And exercise as well helps us to make sure our body is in that optimal thing. We need to sleep, we need to exercise, we need to eat properly, and believe it or not, we need to have fun. We need to take some time to just thaw out, and we need to learn some strategies to do that. Go for, some of you like to run, go for a run. You don't understand what the fun thing is? Some of you like to read chick flicks and watch a movie or whatever. Reward yourself. It's better for you to, look here, you can't wait now to do it though, you know, because guess what? What the rain didn't fill up, the dew won't fill it up, right? You have to start early. That's how you get the fun, all right? So you take a little time and you do something that you like. It sort of gets your brain relaxed again to focus again. So you see, if you've been doing 2 hours of work, an hour, 1 hour work, and then you go and do something that you like watch a half an hour movie and you make a big laugh, or you go and sleep or something, and then you come back again and you do some more. When you're going to your exam, make sure you're early. You have all your pencil and your paper and so on and so forth. And then when you get to your exam, you take a deep breath. If you're a person who likes to pray, you say your prayers. If you're somebody who just likes to zone out in your zone, just take some music before you get there and pump up yourself, relax, take some deep breaths, and make sure you're ready for your exam. And I know, you know, I am telling you based on my own experience. I remember I was a good math student, and I will not forget my first year at UWI. I went into a math exam, and believe me, the first thing I had to do in that exam was to write my name, and I forgot how to spell my name. I spent the whole exam trying to remember how to spell my name. And now looking back, I realized that I should have got up and tell them that I couldn't do the exam, but I sat there trying to remember how to spell my name, just could not remember. I couldn't even find my pencil. Something just went lost. I just went blank, 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 blank. So of course, you know, they kicked me out of M10B, and you will put a blank on me for M10B. And I think I had to do M10C. And I was a good math student. I taught everybody the night before, but was so keyed up, couldn't remember to spell my name. I remember just sitting there for the whole exam, could not remember how to spell my name. That's the first thing I had to do in the exam. You don't want that to happen to you. So you need to relax. Needless to say, I went on to chemistry and I wasn't a math major. So, and you, yes. You will forget. You have to, sometimes you forget. You need to start from early.
Dr. Copeland, let me come in and tell you what I was saying. And we need to first of all, we need to tell them when we were having research group meetings, and our research group meetings go sometimes, guys, until late into the night. But at 7 o'clock, when Young and the Restless is gonna start, Professor Kawa knows that by 6:30, Edia is leaving. She's done. Start at 2 o'clock and she's done at 7. She's going off to watch Young and the Restless. That's that. So she's telling you, you know, what she lived. Now, I want Dr. Copeland, Copeland Solas, comment on this for me, because students with the anxieties, we have good students. I have some of them here in my chem class. It's a pleasure to work with them. They're brilliant and they're learning in classes. When exams are announced, they feel like they're just starting and, oh my God, exam is next week. And they forget that they know some things already. How do they deal with this?
Well, and that's where you have to build your confidence. And you build your confidence by making sure that you're doing your due diligence on your way to the exam. Probably not, that is the time when you start looking at some of the past papers, especially if you've done what you're supposed to do. And you don't have the confidence sometimes because you didn't know what the learning objectives were, and so you didn't know what success looked like. And that's important. So if you're trying to ride a bike, you know what success is like when you learn to ride a bicycle. You're able to stay on it and move from A to B. So anytime you're there, then you start feeling confident. But if you don't know what your learning objectives are and you don't know what success should look like, that is when you lose your confidence. When we know what success looks like, we know when we know, and then we become confident. And so that's why it's so important for you early on to learn what it is that you need to be getting from this and what the success looks like. Once you have a good picture of that, then your confidence increases.
I see somebody has their hand up, one of the Tyreeks.
Go ahead.
It's this Tyreek. So I was actually going to like sort of speak further on what I was saying earlier, because I could honestly have a concept and I know the concept, but like when I'm going through studying, like for instance, it's the final exam, so it's on every slide. When I'm going through studying, I tell myself I have to read every slide, and if I don't, then even if I'm like, but I understood that, I'm like, no, but I didn't read it, and now I'm like anxious as hell, just walking away like, well, what if there's something I forgot about it? Like I remember for CSEC or the Cape for Cape, I was honestly that anxious, and like one of my friends actually saw me there trying to read through all my notes, and he's just like, just do a past paper, you know what to do already. And so like, yeah, so that's why I just sat down there past paper. But and there was no interference, I would just kept on reading and panicking.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a good
sometimes you work yourself up because you get yourself into a state, and when you find yourself, you need to be able to check yourself, and that's when you find yourself. That's why you need to know, for example, what helps you to relax. And when you find yourself getting more anxious than you should, then you tap into what it is that you need to relax. Because
Okay.
especially when the stakes are high. We get anxious even though we know, because the stakes are so high. We just keep killing ourselves with the what if I forget, what if. And so that's why it's important for us to tap into that. And to be honest, I'm hoping that one day we'll get to the level where our exams are set up in such a way that they are not so high stakes, where you mean that you get a shot and you're out, because that produces its own anxiety, because you know that should your stomach start hurting you that day, or whatever the case may be, then it may, you feel like it's your only shot. But I think more instructors are becoming more accessible these days. And so, for example, I'm sure if you're in Dr. Singh Wilmot's class and so on, she's approachable. So you can let her know how you're feeling or whatever, find your one-on-one. Before, like when I was in school as a little country girl, don't know anybody come up and so on. And I don't talk to anybody that teach me. I didn't know they wanted to help me. To be honest, I didn't. But now in the teaching position, I go above and beyond for my students. And I'm like, how comes I didn't know there were people like me there? Because there must have been people like me, but I just didn't know. So I didn't ask. And so I didn't get what I needed. Are the learning objectives provided clearly nowadays, or are they just generally given in the syllabus? Dr.
I can answer that for us here. They are all of your courses on your RVLE platform. You should see your course container, on that course container document, right? You should see your course outline, which provides you with all of those details. The learning outcomes are itemized in that document, and that's in your course container for each of your courses. Okay. For chemistry, we call it a course guidance document, which is posted at the top in each of the course containers. It's called a course guidance document.
That's right. So now you know where to find them. Somebody was saying they're too shy to talk in class. And we understand that not everybody likes to speak out in public, but you could always go one-on-one, make an appointment to see your instructor. And see, Solange is volunteering to talk for you. So yeah, you can ask your friends who run interference for you. Yeah, that's also a good one. And I know science students tend not to do this, but it's always good to find a study partner, So you find somebody you can partner with who wants to work along with you, and you work together and bounce things off each other, and it helps to encourage you and to focus you for your studies. And I don't know, I think the printer still does, but they normally have these little cuttings over there that once they do their cutting at the printer, they have all these little pieces of paper. Make use of those, get those, and keep writing your stuff, right? Your muscles, remember, as you write, you also revise, right? You just do calculations, and because you'll pick up a whole bunch of them from the printer as you do your calculations, or as you write your explanations, you throw those in the bin and you just use a new set and you just keep writing. It helps to keep it fresh, okay?
Yeah, they're not using paper and pencil anymore, sister. I asked that, but it's I find it works for me.
Yeah, I know we like to use the computer, but it helps the act of writing actually helps you to revise. All right, so I'm not necessarily going to ask you to respond to these questions, but I wanted to have them there because this was the aim of our session. So now I want you to check with yourselves whether or not you have pulled anything from this session. So can you now identify the action words in your exam questions? And Can you relate these action words to what's required for the successful response in your exams? And can you remember any of the tips I gave you for your optimal exam taking conditions? All right, so I'm going to end off as you check yourself. Yes, and I'm looking forward to your mashing up those exams. Yes, fantastic. A's all around. Look out for them, Dr. Singh Wilmot. I have here a little video. It's not very long that I'm hoping that I can play just to close off the session and to do some consolidation. Okay. Probably I should put it on YouTube to watch. Let me know if you can hear. Can you hear? Did you hear that just now?
Yes, Miss, we did.
Yes.
Okay.
Exam time is the most stressful, sleep-deprived, and grueling part of being in. Ask any student, and they will tell you that exam time is the most stressful, sleep-deprived, and grueling part of being in college. And with all the work that many students put in, they still fail to get the grades they want. I was once that student who worked extremely hard to get good grades, yet I always fell short until I learned a few critical study habits. So bosses, in this video, I'll share with you some of my most effective study tricks that you yourself can use to go from 0 to hero and get the amazing grades that you've always wanted. Back in college, I was a very hardworking student. I went to all my classes, read every assigned chapter, and put in more hours of studying than I could count. With all this hard work being put in, you would expect that I would be one of the top students in my program, right? Well, unfortunately, this is not the case. Every test and exam I got back was far from being anything to brag about. And with only a year left in my program, I started to question whether a master's program was in the cards for me. You see, I always wanted to be the first person in my family to get a master's degree. But with these subpar marks, my dream was slowly slipping away. What was worse is that my finals were just a month away, and these grades would be considered if I were to apply to other programs after my undergraduate degree. So I needed to find a way to improve my academic performance, and in a hurry. A month before final exams, I had just been introduced to podcasts, which I would listen to on my way to and from class. One day, I was searching new episodes and came across one that immediately caught my attention. It was titled, 4 Study Hacks Top Students Will Never Tell You. Of course, given how desperate I was to improve my grades before applying to grad school, I hit the play button and began to listen. The podcast continued playing, and finally I got to the first take, which is the focus on the 4 concepts. It said that many students will read the textbook from front to back and try and memorize every detail while failing to grasp the main concepts at a deeper level, which allows them to create more insightful answers on their exam. This point made total sense to me. I would use how much I read as my indicator for sufficient studying, rather than what I read. I thought to myself, was I writing 4 answers on my exam because I didn't understand the concept as well as I had thought? I then listened on. The second study hack was to write down your notes by hand. I laughed to myself, thinking this tip was rather antiquated, given that typing is so much faster. But then I heard an interesting fact. A 2014 study showed that students who handwrite their notes retain information much more effectively than those who type their notes. I figured that typing meant that I was getting more of the information in my notes, but it turns out the act of writing your notes by hand makes you process the information in your own words, leading to better retention. We were 2 tips into the podcast, and I began to get a feeling that these newly found tips would definitely help me in my quest to getting better grades. Study hack number 3 was to use Parkinson's law when studying. Parkinson's law, I thought to myself, isn't that a disease? Well, apparently Parkinson's law is the idea that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. And in the case of studying, that involves not setting time limits on your study periods. In essence, by not setting time periods for studying, you are more prone to lacking the focus needed when reading and writing notes, since you perceive your study time to be endless. The podcast stated that top students allocate defined periods of time to study where they focus intensely, then take breaks to give their brain a chance to process its newly acquired information. I had to kick myself because I was definitely the student who thought that the more hours I studied, the more prepared I was. But in reality, what matters more is how focused you are when you crack open the books. As my commute to school was coming to an end, I was then presented with the fourth and final study hack, which quite honestly changed the course of my academic career. The hack was so impactful that I still remember exactly how it was phrased by the podcast host. He said, the fourth study hack is to adopt study habits from the top level students. I spent most of my college career comparing myself to the highest achieving students, rather than asking them for tips and advice. After class that day, I began talking with some of the best students in my class, and their tips were instantly impactful in building my own study habits. They mentioned how they would use flashcards to learn key definitions, how they would teach others the content to better learn it themselves, and even how they would ensure they got enough rest the night before big exams in order to assure their success. 2 months after hearing this podcast, I was a completely different student. I began to study the pertinent topics of all my courses, cut out all distractions when studying, limited my study periods, and continuously searched for better study methods. And to my delight, I got on the dean's list for the first time in my college career. And as I say, the rest is history. Thanks for watching. For more advice to help you achieve the life you deserve, hit ask any student.
Okay, so that's where I want to end my presentation today. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be around if you have questions.
No. I have
Okay, thank you so much,
another
Dr.
question.
Solas. I see Justin has his hand up. And Justin, you also you're the one doing the vote of thanks, right? So Justin, take it away. And guys, we have entertainment coming up after Justin does his vote of thanks, right?
Okay, so I just wanted to say thanks for this entire session. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule for this session for us. It's nice that like after this now we can sort of look at a question, break the question apart into its different components and be like, okay, this, and then after figuring out this component, we're like, this means this means this. So it's like sort of dumbing down each question for us. And so now we can look at a question and be like, now I know what the question means. Additionally, the tips, they're helpful. And I am personally going to start looking at the objectives for everything I study before I start studying, because I'm not gonna lie, I actually do not look at the objective slides for most of my courses. I just sort of be like, okay, objectives, yeah, I need to read. But now if I know, it makes sense. If I know the objectives, I can sort of like focus on those, and maybe that will actually build confidence in me. So thank you for the entire, what's this thing called, Zoom meeting?
Thank you so much, Justin, and thank you again, Dr. Solas, for, I see 10 out of 10 coming in. I see lots of words that indicate that the objectives have been met. So thank you so much for taking that time. Guys, I've put a link to a Google form that I'm asking you to fill out for us. Dr. Solas, don't go. I know you have a class with your teachers, your students who are science educators themselves there at University of Toronto. Remember, guys, she's assistant professor and she's a science education specialist. We can see that this business of science education and this business of education is in good hands because we have people like Dr. Solas who is involved in teacher training. And the good news is she's one of us. So she'll always be coming back over here so we can all learn from her. Now we have Malik. Malik, where are you? Malik White, everybody. Malik White is majoring in geography. And Malik, you've written a poem, haven't you? This one you wrote yourself, right, Malik? Come online with me here.
Hello, good afternoon. I am quite nervous.
All right, take some of the exam anxiety, minimizing exam
Hi,
anxiety.
quite nervous. I'm Justin.
That was funny. I'll give you an applause for that one. That was really funny.
All right,
yeah,
take it away, Malik.
This poem is an original. I wrote it 15 minutes ago. It's called it's called Let's Talk About It.
Are we
Yeah?
not seeing you, Malik? Are you not gonna let us see your face?
Let me turn on my camera. My start video. Let's see.
There you go.
All right. Yeah. So it's an original. It's called Let's Talk About It. Okay. Let's talk about the sleepless nights. Let's talk about the bloodshot eyes. Let's talk about assignments piling high, entering university. Why did I? Let's talk about the weekly submission marathons that we endure. Let's talk about handing in one lab only to be handed 3 more. Let's talk about the stress of you have assignments that need your attention. Labs, assignments, presentations, and group work, not to mention. Let's talk about the we just need 50% for pass mentality. Let's talk about submitting 2 seconds late and having to face the late penalty. Let's talk about the pressure from our parents to be on the honor roll. Let's talk about all-nighter after all-nighter taking its toll. But still, we persevere because we know the battle, it doesn't stop here. So let's talk about the joy of passing that test that had us stressed. Let's talk about finishing that lab that had us looking a hot mess. Let's talk about, my bad. Let's talk about the dreams that keep us going. Let's talk about seeing the reward of all our hard work showing. Let's talk about the blue gown and cap with diploma in hand. Let's talk about upper class honors, you understand? Let's talk about maintaining that GPA. Let's talk about standing with pride on graduation day. Sheer determination, resilience, tenacity, and the willingness to commit. Well, my side, that's it. We've talked about it. Thank you.
Fantastic. Both of you, I am so very, very, very happy, and I enjoyed both those poems. As Marvin told you, I used to like writing poems, and the spoken word has been a way that Jamaicans have been expressing ourselves from time to time and over the years, and it's something that we do so very well, and you have both done so very well this evening, and I thank you for sharing.
Wonderful, Dr. Solas. I know you would have enjoyed
it's the
that.
type of way I tell my students, you know, these are the ways that you have even your science students express themselves in class, and I'm so excited that this spoken word is still a part of us, continues to be a part of us.
Wonderful. And you see the breadth of the talent down here in the FST. And when you listen to, guys, whenever she comes over here, whenever she's coming over to get some sunshine from where she is there in Toronto, coming over to Kingston, you guys get ready to meet with her. She can simplify any concept for anyone to understand. Trust me about it. Okay. Dr. Solas, students, all of our colleagues who are here, thank you again for joining this Total You Part 3. Remember, Dr. Solas and all our students, this Total You series is about supporting our students with some of those other things. So we meet once every month, the last Thursday in the month. It's a collaboration between the students and the FSTs, the Office of the Associate Dean for Student Experience, to just talk about and deal with those other things that support our academic and life goals, right? Those other dimensions. It's just that this week, we know that you're about to go into exams, and we thought it would be good for us to get you ready. We're all working towards the same goal, that is to get you in that gown that Malik talked about, right? And achieve your dreams. And I always say, I've got to remind my students, all of you remember this, that the grades are important because the grades are that key, you know, that key to get you into the room. But for you to stay in that room and probably upgrade that room from ground floor to penthouse, you need the competencies. So getting the grade is not enough. And I know many of us are focused on that alone, but we need to have grade and competencies. And when you take these tips that Dr. Solas had put out there for you, you're going to get those competencies and the grades will come. All right. So guys, let's go do the greatness that we're known for now and get those A+ in the exams and enjoy. Remember, the Christmas breeze is here. I've got my poinsettias, at front and back. They're out. Christmas lights coming soon. It's a great time of year. Let's get the A+ and put the icing on the cake for Christmas. All right. Oh, we don't ice and cake for Christmas, do we? Put the rum in the Christmas cake. We want to close the year on that high, and you can. Come in, Tariq, number 4.
Miss, whatever's on, Miss, as long as whatever's on the cake is edible, I'm fine with it.
All right, Justin. All right. Tariq, from the student side, from the FSDGC, you want to say something in 2 minutes as we go off?
All right, so the total use sessions has been going on for the semester, and for everyone here, for those rejoining, for those joining for the first time, I just want to thank you for coming out. Please send in your feedback so we can know what you want and how we can help to make your university experience much better. And again, thank you for joining us today. Good luck in your exams. Oh, also look out for our Saturday art block coming out. It's a very important part of my manifesto, and I want to hear from you guys, and I want to see your creativity shines. All of you are poets, singers. Send in a song, send in a poem.
Thank you, and everyone, I just dropped the link again for you to do the review for me for today's session. All the best, everyone. Keep safe.